As night falls, a luxury truck drives along a dirt road through a dense forest. Four loud adults jump out, followed by a sharp-eyed girl who limps curiously between the trees. On a steep slope, she falls. Her leg twists at a wrong angle, snapping loudly. While she screams, the adults laugh, take photos, and walk away slowly. A white horse watches from behind the leaves, ears pointed toward the pain. The light fades and silence falls, except for the girl's ragged breathing. Between the trunks, a sound emerges, and then time stops. Love stories with animals? Then subscribe now and never miss one. Thanks for being here. Now, back to our story. Chapter 1. The Cruelty of the Privileged. Lily Morgan clutched her small backpack to her chest as the luxury SUVs rolled to a stop at the edge of Olympic National Forest in Washington state. The morning mist still clung to the towering evergreens, creating an ethereal curtain that seemed to separate this pristine wilderness from the modern world. At 10 years old, she was the only child among the group of wealthy business people who had organized this exclusive executive retreat deep in the protected forest. "Remember, Lily, stay where we can see you," her Uncle Richard called out, barely, looking in her direction as he adjusted his expensive hiking gear. Richard Morgan, CEO of Morgan Development Group, had reluctantly brought his niece along after her parents had been called away on an unexpected business trip. The other executives had frowned at the news, but none dared object to the boss's decision. Lily nodded obediently, though she knew adults like these rarely bothered to actually keep track of her. She had become accustomed to being the forgotten child, the quiet shadow at formal dinners and corporate events, always present but never truly seen. This forest trip was no different. She was merely baggage, brought along because there was nowhere else to put her. "Let's set up the base camp here," announced Vanessa Wheeler, tapping at her tablet while her assistant scrambled to unload the equipment. "The caterers should arrive within the hour with lunch. The photographers will want to get shots of everyone connecting with nature before we lose this dramatic morning light." Lily watched as the adults busied themselves with their performative wilderness experience. They wore perfectly coordinated outdoor attire that had clearly never seen dirt before today. Their laughter echoed artificially as they posed with hiking poles and compasses they didn't know how to use. This wasn't about experiencing nature, it was about documenting themselves against an impressive backdrop for their social media profiles and company newsletters. While the adults were distracted with their preparations, Lily slipped away toward a small clearing she had spotted. Unlike the executives with their loud voices and constant complaints about the lack of cell service, she moved quietly, reverently, understanding instinctively that she was a guest in this ancient place. The forest welcomed her in a way the adults never did. Every step revealed new wonders, a cluster of tiny purple wildflowers pushing through the moss, the intricate pattern of lichen on a fallen log, the persistent drilling of a woodpecker somewhere overhead. Lily breathed deeply, filling her lungs with the scent of pine and damp earth. Here, at least, she felt something real. "You're actually supposed to look at it, not just photograph it," she whispered to herself, mimicking Vanessa, who had earlier instructed everyone to take pictures of a magnificent old-growth cedar without ever once looking up from her phone. As the morning progressed, the executives' nature retreat transformed into what it was always meant to be, a networking event. With trees as mere props, champagne flowed as caterers set up an elaborate lunch spread on white linen tablecloths. The group gathered around, talking loudly about stock options and upcoming mergers, occasionally gesturing at the forest as if to include it in their conversation. "Lily, come eat something," her uncle called out, more for appearance's sake than out of genuine concern. But Lily was entranced by a patch of sunlight that had broken through the canopy, illuminating a carpet of ferns in golden light. She waved acknowledgement without turning back. "Let her wander," Lily heard someone say. "Not like there's anything dangerous out here. This place is practically a park." Their dismissive laughter faded as Lily ventured further from the camp. She knew she shouldn't go too far, but something about the forest kept pulling her forward. A flicker of white caught her eye, something moving between the trees ahead. Curious, she followed, stepping carefully over roots and rocks. The terrain grew steeper, but Lily pressed on, determined to discover what she had glimpsed. She rounded a massive fallen tree and gasped in delight. There, in a small sunlit clearing, stood a delicate white trillium flower, its 3 perfect petals gleaming like porcelain against the dark forest floor. "You're so beautiful," she whispered, kneeling to examine it more closely. According to the guidebook she'd been reading in the car, these wildflowers were protected, rare treasures to be admired but never picked. She reached for her small camera, wanting to capture its perfect form without disturbing it. That's when it happened. As she leaned forward, the damp earth beneath her gave way. Lily felt a sickening lurch as the ground disappeared from under her feet. Her scream echoed through the trees as she tumbled down a steep, hidden slope, her small body bouncing against rocks and roots before coming to a sudden, painful stop against a fallen tree. The silence that followed was absolute. Lily lay still, afraid to move, the shock momentarily masking the pain. When she finally tried to stand, white-hot agony shot through her right leg, forcing a cry from her lips. Looking down, she saw her leg bent at an unnatural angle just below. The knee, the realization crashed over her. Her leg was broken and she was alone. "Help!" she called out, her voice thin and trembling. "Uncle Richard, anyone, please help me!" Her cries echoed through the forest, but the luxury camp was now far above her and out of sight. Tears streamed down her dirt-streaked face as she called again and again until her throat was raw. Time stretched endlessly as the shadows lengthened around her. Hours later, she heard voices. Hope surged through her as she called out again, ignoring the throbbing pain that had become her constant companion. "Down! Here!" she shouted when she heard footsteps approaching the ridge above. "Jesus Christ, there she is!" Uncle Richard's face appeared at the top of the ridge, followed by several others from the group. Relief flooded through Lily despite the pain. They had found her, they would help her now, but what happened next would haunt her dreams for years to come. Instead of rushing to help, someone laughed, then another. Soon, several of them were chuckling as they stared down at her crumpled form. "Look at her leg," said Vanessa, raising her phone. The unmistakable click of a camera shutter cut through the air. "This is why kids don't belong on adult outings." "Seriously, Richard, what were you thinking bringing her?" said another executive, shaking his head in exasperation rather than concern. Uncle Richard didn't defend her. Instead, he rubbed his temples and sighed heavily. "Lily, why did you wander so far? Now we'll have to cut the retreat short." "I'm sorry," Lily whimpered, confusion mingling with the pain. Why weren't they coming to get her? Why were they acting like she'd done something wrong? "How are we supposed to get down there?" someone asked. "That slope is too steep." "We'd need rescue equipment, ropes at least," added another. "The nearest ranger station is 2 hours away," said Vanessa, checking her watch. "And we have the dinner with the Japanese investors tonight. We can't miss that." Lily stared up at them in disbelief. Were they actually discussing leaving her here? "She'll be fine," said a man Lily recognized as her uncle's business partner. "Kids are resilient. We'll send help back once we reach civilization." "Uncle Richard, please," Lily begged, her voice breaking. "It hurts really bad." For a moment, something like guilt flashed across her uncle's face. Then Vanessa whispered something in his ear, and his expression hardened. "Lily, this is a good lesson about following instructions," he called down, his voice taking on the same tone he used when dictating memos. "We'll send park rangers to get you. They're trained for this sort of thing. "Take some pictures for Instagram," someone joked, and a chorus of laughter followed. "This'll teach her not to wander off where she doesn't belong," said another voice, followed by more callous laughter. Lily couldn't believe what she was hearing. These were adults. They were supposed to protect children, not abandon them. "Please don't leave me," she sobbed. But they were already turning away, their voices fading as they discussed their dinner plans and the inconvenience of having to call the ranger station. The last thing Lily saw was her uncle glancing back once, his face unreadable, before he too disappeared from view. As the sounds of the group faded away, a terrible silence descended upon the forest. The afternoon light was already growing dim, as shadows lengthened between the trees. Lily tried once more to move, but the pain was unbearable. Her leg was definitely broken, and she was completely alone in the vast wilderness of Olympic National Forest. The realization settled over her like the approaching darkness. The adults who should have protected her had abandoned her, leaving her injured and alone. Not just strangers, but her own family. Tears streamed down her face as she hugged herself against the growing chill, her small body shaking with sobs and shock. Night was coming, and with it, all the unknown dangers of the forest. Lily had never felt so small, so vulnerable, or so betrayed. She closed her eyes, wishing with all her heart that someone, anyone, would come to help her. But the forest remained silent, indifferent to her prayers, as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky above the trees. Chapter 2. The Silent Guardian. Darkness fell completely over Olympic National Forest, bringing with it a profound silence unlike anything Lily had ever experienced. The cheerful sounds of daytime creatures had given way to something more primal, occasional rustles in the underbrush, the distant hoot of an owl, and other noises she couldn't identify. Each unfamiliar sound sent a new wave of fear through her small body. The temperature dropped rapidly once the sun disappeared. Lily pulled her light jacket tighter around her shoulders, but it offered little protection against the damp chill that seemed to rise from the forest floor. Her broken leg throbbed in time with her heartbeat, a steady reminder of her predicament. The initial shock had worn off, leaving behind a deep, grinding pain that made it impossible to think clearly. "They'll send help," she whispered to herself, her voice sounding thin and unconvincing in the vast darkness. Uncle Richard promised they would send rangers, Udi, but even as she said the words, doubt crept in. The way they had laughed at her, taking photos instead of helping. Would they really send anyone? Hours passed with excruciating slowness. Lily tried to stay awake, afraid of what might approach. In the darkness, if she let her guard down, but exhaustion and pain eventually pulled her toward unconsciousness. Her thoughts became disjointed, memories mixing with half-formed dreams. A sudden sound jolted her back to alertness, something large moving through the underbrush nearby. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she strained to see through the darkness. Was it a bear? A mountain lion? The forest was home to predators. She knew that much from the warning signs at the trailheads. "Hello?" she called out weakly, then immediately regretted making any noise. What if she attracted the wrong kind of attention? The rustling grew closer, deliberately moving toward her. Lily held her breath, frozen in terror. A large shape emerged from between the trees, its outline barely visible in the faint moonlight that filtered through the canopy. As it stepped into a patch of moonlight, Lily gasped. A horse. A wild horse, with a coat so pale it seemed to glow in the darkness. Lily had never seen a wild horse in these woods, hadn't even known they lived here. It was smaller than the riding horses she'd seen at summer camps, but still powerful and magnificent. Its pale coat was speckled with darker markings, and its mane fell in tangled waves. This was no groomed show pony. This was a creature of the wilderness, strong and free. The horse approached cautiously, nostrils flaring as it caught her scent. Lily remained perfectly still, afraid that any sudden movement might startle it away. As it drew closer, she could see its eyes, dark and intelligent, studying her with what seemed like concern. "Hello," she whispered, this time with wonder rather than fear. "I won't hurt you." The horse nickered softly, a gentle rumbling sound that somehow eased the tightness in Lily's chest. It stepped closer, lowering its head to sniff at her injured leg. Instinctively, Lily reached out a trembling hand. To her amazement, the horse didn't shy away, but instead pressed its velvet muzzle against her palm. "Are you all alone too?" she asked, tears welling in her eyes again. There was something about the horse's gentle presence that broke through the walls she'd built around her fear and pain. The horse moved beside her, and to Lily's astonishment, carefully lowered itself to the ground. It folded its legs and settled on the forest floor next to her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from its body. The gesture was so deliberate, so contrary to what a wild animal should do, that Lily could hardly believe it was happening. "Thank you," she whispered, leaning cautiously against the horse's flank. The warmth of its body was a blessed relief against the night's chill. The horse remained still, seemingly content to share its warmth with the injured child. For the first time since her fall, Lily felt something other than fear and abandonment. This wild creature, with no obligation to help her, had chosen to stay. Unlike the adults who should have protected her, this horse had shown her kindness. The night deepened around them. With the horse's warmth beside her, Lily finally drifted into an exhausted sleep. Her dreams were chaotic, images of falling, of faces laughing down at her, of darkness closing in. But each time the fear threatened to overwhelm her, she would feel the steady presence of the horse beside her, anchoring her to safety. She woke once to the sound of something moving in the brush nearby. Opening her eyes, she saw the horse had raised its head, ears pricked forward, alert to the potential danger. Whatever was out there seemed to consider the situation, then retreated. The horse lowered its head again, but remained vigilant, a silent sentinel guarding the injured child throughout the night. Dawn arrived with thin fingers of light stretching through the trees. Lily opened her eyes to find the horse still beside her, its body having sheltered her from the worst of the night's cold. Her leg was a mass of pain, and hunger gnawed at her stomach, but she had survived the night, something she hadn't been sure was possible when darkness first fell. "Good morning," she said softly to her unexpected guardian. The horse's ear flicked toward her voice, and it turned to regard her with those same intelligent eyes. As the light strengthened, Lily could see her companion more clearly. It wasn't pure white as she had first thought, but a pale, dappled gray that appeared almost silver in the morning light. It wasn't a large horse, more of a wild pony really, but its presence felt larger than life after the long, frightening night. "I don't think anyone's coming for me," Lily admitted, her voice breaking. Saying the words aloud made the betrayal even more real. "Uncle Richard and his friends, they left me here on purpose." Tears slid down her cheeks, cutting tracks through the dirt on her face. The horse watched her cry, then did something remarkable. It rose to its feet, shook itself, and moved a few steps away. Lily felt a stab of panic. Was her only friend leaving too? But instead of walking away, the horse turned and came back, then lowered itself to the ground again, this time kneeling with its front legs bent. Lily stared in confusion. The horse remained in that position, looking back at her, expectantly. Then she understood. It wanted her to climb onto its back. "You want to help me?" she asked in disbelief. The horse nickered softly as if in confirmation. Moving was agony. Lily bit her lip until she tasted blood as she dragged herself toward the kneeling horse. Her broken leg screamed in protest, but she forced herself to keep going, inch by painful inch. When she finally reached the horse, she paused, gathering her strength for what would be the most painful part. "I'm scared," she admitted to the horse, who waited patiently, "but I trust you." With a deep breath, Lily pulled herself up, using the horse's mane to steady herself. The pain nearly caused her to black out, but somehow she managed to drag herself onto the horse's back. As soon as she was securely positioned, the horse carefully rose to its feet. The movement sent fresh waves of agony through her leg, but Lily clung to the horse's mane, determined not to fall. Once standing, the horse remained still, allowing her to adjust her position and find her balance. "Thank you," she whispered, leaning forward to stroke the strong neck beneath her. "I don't know why you're helping me, but thank you." With careful, deliberate steps, the horse began to move through the forest. It chose its path with remarkable care, avoiding rough ground and low branches that might have dislodged its injured passenger. Lily held on, focusing on staying upright, despite the waves of pain and dizziness that threatened to overwhelm her. They traveled slowly but steadily, the horse seeming to know exactly where it was going. Lily had no idea which direction would lead to help, but she trusted this forest creature more than she had ever trusted the adults who had abandoned her. There was a wisdom in the horse's eyes, a knowing that went beyond human understanding. The morning sun climbed higher, warming the forest. Birds called overhead, and occasionally small creatures scurried away from their path. Despite her pain and hunger, Lily found herself noticing the beauty around her, the way sunlight dappled through the leaves, the rich colors of the forest floor, the majesty of the ancient trees towering above them. There was something healing about being immersed in this wild place, carried by a creature who embodied its spirit. "I never even saw a real wild horse before," Lily told her silent companion as they made their way through a particularly beautiful grove of cedars. "I didn't know horses lived in these forests." The horse's ear twitched back at the sound of her voice, acknowledging her words without pausing in its careful journey. As the day wore on, Lily's condition deteriorated. The pain in her leg was now accompanied by a burning thirst and growing weakness from hunger. She swayed on the horse's back, her grip on its mane becoming tenuous. Dark spots danced at the edges of her vision, and she knew she couldn't stay conscious much longer. "I don't think I can hold on," she murmured, her voice barely audible. As if understanding her distress, the horse stopped beside a small stream. Carefully, it lowered itself again, allowing Lily to slide off without further injuring herself. The cool water was a blessing beyond words. Lily dragged herself to the stream's edge and drank deeply, the fresh water reviving her slightly. The horse drank too, then grazed on the lush grass beside the water while Lily rested. "We need to find people," she told the horse, though she wasn't sure if she wanted to face humans again after what had happened. The horse raised its head from grazing, regarding her thoughtfully, then returned to eating. It seemed in no hurry to continue their journey, as if understanding that Lily needed this respite. As she rested by the stream, Lily thought about her situation with a clarity that surprised her. Uncle Richard and his friends had abandoned her, choosing their dinner plans over her safety. They had looked down at her broken body and laughed. The memory still cut deep, but alongside the pain, there was now a dawning realization. Their actions revealed their own brokenness, not hers. "They're the ones who are lost," she told the horse, who had finished grazing and now stood nearby, watching over her. "Not me." The horse nickered softly, as if agreeing with her assessment. After resting for what felt like an hour, the horse approached and once again knelt beside her. Lily understood. It was time to continue their journey. With great effort, she mounted again, the process slightly easier this time as she knew what to expect. They traveled through the afternoon, the forest gradually changing around them. The dense, old growth gave way to younger trees, and Lily began to notice signs of human presence. An old fire ring, a faded trail marker, a piece of litter half buried in leaves. They were approaching civilization. Hope and anxiety warred within her. Would she find help or more people like those who had abandoned her? The horse seemed to sense her uncertainty, pausing to look back at her with those knowing eyes. "I'm okay," she assured it, though her voice trembled. "We need to find help for my leg." As the sun began to lower toward the horizon, Lily heard a sound that made her heart leap. Voices, human voices, calling out in the distance. For a moment, panic seized her. What if it was Uncle Richard and his friends, returning not to help but to cover up what they had done? But these voices were different, a woman's voice, strong and clear, calling a name. "Mason, Mason, where are you?" "Here!" Lily tried to shout, but her parched throat produced only a weak cry. The horse, however, seemed to understand. It let out a loud whinny, the sound echoing through the trees. The voices paused, then called out again, closer now. "Hello? Is someone there?" The horse whinnied again, then began moving deliberately toward the voices. Lily clung to its mane, hope and fear mingling in her chest. As they emerged from a thick stand of trees, she saw 3 figures standing on a marked trail about 50 yards away. A woman in a forest ranger uniform, an older man with a dog on a leash, and a teenage boy who must have been Mason. For a moment, everyone froze in astonishment. The tableau must have been striking. A small, dirty child with a visibly broken leg riding a wild horse out of the dense forest. Then the ranger woman broke into a run, heading straight for them. "Oh my God," she called out. "Are you hurt?" The horse stood perfectly still as the humans approached, allowing the ranger to reach Lily without spooking. Up close, Lily could see the genuine concern in the woman's eyes, so different from the callous stares of her uncle's associates. "My name is Ranger Sarah Cooper," the woman said gently. "We're going to help you. Can you tell me your name?" "Lily," she managed to whisper. "Lily Morgan. I fell. My leg is broken." "We're going to get you to a hospital, Lily," Ranger Sarah assured her, carefully examining the injured leg without touching it. "Can you tell me how long you've been out here?" "Since yesterday. They left me." Lily's voice broke. "Uncle Richard and his friends. They saw I was hurt, and they left me." The ranger's expression darkened, but her voice remained gentle. "You're safe now, Lily. We'll take care of you." She turned to the older man. "Jack, radio for emergency medical transport. We've got an injured child." As Jack pulled out a radio, Mason approached cautiously, staring in wonder at the horse. "Where did the horse come from?" he asked. "I didn't know there were wild horses in this part of the forest." "He saved me," Lily said simply. "He stayed with me all night and then carried me here." Ranger Sarah was looking at the horse with a mixture of confusion and amazement. "This is unusual behavior for a wild animal," she said. "Very unusual." "He's my friend," Lily insisted, stroking the horse's neck with all the affection she could convey, as if understanding that its task was complete. The horse carefully knelt again, allowing Ranger Sarah to help Lily slide safely to the ground. The pain of moving made Lily cry out, but the ranger's strong arms caught her, lowering her gently to a makeshift seat on a fallen log. Jack returned with emergency supplies, and they carefully splinted her leg while waiting for the medical team. Through it all, the horse remained nearby, watching. When the paramedics arrived 20 minutes later with a stretcher, it stepped back but didn't flee. As they prepared to carry Lily away, she reached out toward her silent guardian. "Wait," she pleaded. "Can I say goodbye?" The paramedics hesitated, then carefully brought the stretcher close enough for Lily to extend her hand. The horse stepped forward without fear, pressing its soft muzzle against her palm one last time. "Thank you," Lily whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I won't forget you." As they carried her away toward the waiting ambulance, Lily kept her eyes on the horse for as long as possible. It stood at the edge of the forest, watching her go, its pale coat gleaming in the late afternoon light. Just before they rounded a bend in the trail, Lily saw the horse turn and disappear back into the forest that was its home. She closed her eyes then, exhaustion finally claiming her. But even as consciousness slipped away, she held on to one certainty. She had been abandoned by those who should have cared for her, but she had been saved by a creature who owed her nothing. There was a lesson in that, one she would carry with her always. Chapter 3. Echoes of Truth. The sterile white walls of Jefferson County Hospital closed around Lily like a different kind of forest, one of beeping machines and hushed voices. 3 days had passed since her rescue. Her leg, now properly set and encased in a bright blue cast, rested elevated on pillows. The physical pain had subsided to a dull throb thanks to medication, but the emotional wound of abandonment remained raw and open. Detective Andrea Martinez sat in the chair beside Lily's bed, her kind eyes contrasting with the serious set of her mouth. She'd been assigned to Lily's case after Ranger Sarah filed her report, a report that included disturbing allegations of child endangerment and abandonment. "You're doing great, Lily," Detective Martinez said, closing her notebook. After nearly an hour of gentle questioning, "I know this isn't easy to talk about." Lily traced invisible patterns on her blanket, avoiding the detective's eyes. "Are they looking for the horse?" she asked, not for the first time. The detective smiled. "Ranger Sarah has been keeping an eye out, but wild horses aren't common in Olympic National Forest. Some people think it might have been a feral horse that escaped from a ranch years ago." "He knew exactly what he was doing," Lily insisted. "He protected me all night and then carried me to help. He understood." "I believe you," Detective Martinez said simply, and something in her voice made Lily look up. Unlike the doctors and nurses who nodded indulgently when she talked about the horse, the detective's eyes held no disbelief. Sometimes animals sense things we don't understand. A knock on the door interrupted them as Emily Williams, Lily's social worker, entered the room. In her early 30s, with warm brown skin and a cloud of natural curls, Emily had been a steady presence since Lily arrived at the hospital. "How are we doing today?" Emily asked, setting her bag down and pulling up another chair. "We were just finishing up," Detective Martinez said, standing. She gave Lily's hand a gentle squeeze. "I'll be back tomorrow, but you can call me any time if you remember anything else, okay?" After the detective left, Emily turned to Lily with a serious expression. "I have some news about your situation. Your parents are flying back from Tokyo tonight. They should be here by tomorrow afternoon." Relief flooded through Lily. Her parents had been devastated when they learned what happened, calling the hospital repeatedly from Japan, where they'd been attending an international architecture conference. The 12-hour time difference and their remote location had complicated their return, but they were finally coming home. "What about Uncle Richard?" Lily asked, her voice small. Emily's expression hardened slightly. "Richard Morgan and the others involved are being investigated. Detective Martinez is building a case against them for child endangerment and abandonment." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Your uncle has been telling a different story than yours. He claims they called for help immediately and that they couldn't reach you safely." "That's a lie," Lily said, her hands balling into fists. They took pictures of me. They laughed, then they left to go to their dinner. I believe you, Lily, Emily assured her. And so does Detective Martinez. The investigation will uncover the truth. But Lily knew how these things worked. Uncle Richard was powerful. He had money and influence and friends in high places. The other executives would back his story. It would be her word against theirs, a child against a group of respected business leaders. They won't get in trouble, will they? Lily asked, already knowing the answer. Emily hesitated. The justice system isn't perfect, Lily, but Detective Martinez is very good at her job, and there is evidence. The timeline doesn't match your uncle's story, and the Rangers have records. Of when the call for help actually came in, Lily nodded, but deep down she doubted justice would come. She closed her eyes, suddenly exhausted. The image of the pale horse appeared in her mind, strong, silent, wise. What would it think of human justice? Get some rest, Emily said softly, patting Lily's hand. Things will look better tomorrow when your parents are here. After Emily left, Lily turned toward the window. Her room was on the 3rd floor, offering a view of the forest in the distance. Somewhere out there, the horse that had saved her life was roaming free. Would she ever see it again? The thought that she might not left an ache in her chest. As twilight descended, Lily drifted into an uneasy sleep. Her dreams were filled with forests and falling, with faces laughing down at her from above. But always, the pale horse would appear, driving away the darkness with its silent presence. She woke with a start to find her room bathed in moonlight. For a moment, she thought she was still in the forest. Then, the steady beep of monitors brought her back to reality. Something had woken her, a feeling more than a sound. Turning toward the window, Lily gasped. There, in the hospital parking lot 3 stories below, stood a familiar figure. The moonlight caught its pale coat, making it appear to glow against the darkness. It can't be, she whispered, rubbing her eyes. But when she looked again, the horse was still there, standing perfectly still, its gaze seemingly fixed on her window. With tremendous effort, Lily reached for the crutches beside her bed. She wasn't supposed to get up without help, but she had to get closer to the window. The pain in her leg protested as she maneuvered herself upright, but she gritted her teeth and pushed through it. Hopping awkwardly to the window, she pressed her face against the cool glass. The horse hadn't moved. It stood like a statue, a silent sentinel in the night. As if sensing her gaze, it raised its head higher, looking directly at her window. "You came to find me," Lily whispered, tears filling her eyes. The horse pawed once at the ground, then turned and walked with deliberate slowness toward the edge of the parking lot, stopping once to look back at the window. Then it was gone, disappearing into the tree line that bordered the hospital grounds. Lily stayed at the window for a long time, hoping it would return, but the pale shape didn't reappear. When the night nurse found her still standing at the window an hour later, Lily allowed herself to be guided back to bed. She didn't mention the horse. Some things were too precious, too magical to share with those who wouldn't understand. Morning brought sunshine and visitors. Dr. Reynolds checked her leg and pronounced her healing well. Emily stopped by with books and a stuffed horse she'd found in the hospital gift shop. Detective Martinez returned with more questions, gently teasing out details of the abandonment that might strengthen the case. Through it all, Lily remained, distracted, her thoughts returning to the horse in the parking lot. Had it really been there, or was it just a dream? The boundary between reality and imagination seemed thin after her ordeal in the forest. Late in the afternoon, the door to her room burst open. "Lily!" Her mother's voice broke on her name as Sarah Morgan rushed to the bed, gathering Lily into a careful but fierce embrace. Her father was right behind, his tall frame seeming to fill the doorway, his face lined with worry and relief. "Mom! Dad!" Lily clung to her mother, breathing in her familiar scent of vanilla and sandalwood. For the first time since her rescue, she broke down completely, sobs racking her small body. "We're here now, sweetheart. We're here." Her mother stroked her hair, her own tears falling freely. Her father joined the embrace, his strong arms encircling them both. When the storm of emotion finally subsided, Lily looked up at her parents. "I was so scared," she admitted. "Uncle Richard and his friends left me there. They saw I was hurt, and they just left." A dark look passed between her parents. "Richard will never come near you again," her father said, his voice hard. "That's a promise." They spent the next hour catching up. Her parents explained how they'd been in a remote area of Japan with limited communication when everything happened. They'd left their conference immediately upon hearing the news, traveling for nearly 30 hours straight to reach her. "The doctors say you can come home tomorrow," her mother said, smoothing Lily's hair back from her forehead. "We've already set up the downstairs guest room for you, so you won't have to tackle the stairs." "Can we drive past the forest on the way home?" Lily asked. Her parents exchanged a concerned glance. "Are you sure that's what you want?" her father asked gently. "After what happened there?" Lily nodded firmly. "I want to look for the horse that saved me." Her parents had heard about the horse from Emily and the detective. Like the medical staff, they seemed to think it was a story Lily had embellished to cope with her trauma. A fantasy friend who had helped her through a terrifying experience. "The horse was real," Lily insisted, seeing the doubt in their eyes. "He came to the hospital last night. I saw him from my window." Her mother squeezed her hand. "Of course, sweetheart. We can drive by the forest edge on our way home." Later, after her parents had gone to their hotel for the night, promising to return early the next morning, Lily lay awake thinking about what would happen next. Uncle Richard would try to escape punishment. She was certain of that. The other executives would back his story. They would paint her as a foolish child who had wandered off against instructions, forcing them to call for help before continuing with their important business. Would anyone believe her version of events? Would justice ever come for people like Uncle Richard, who thought their money and power placed them above consequences? The moon rose again, silvering the world outside her window. Lily waited, watching, but the horse didn't return. Perhaps it had only come to say goodbye. With that thought heavy in her heart, she finally drifted to sleep. Miles away, in the exclusive Highlands neighborhood of Seattle, Richard Morgan poured himself a third scotch. The amber liquid sloshed over the rim of the crystal tumbler, staining the sleeve of his expensive shirt. He didn't notice, or perhaps didn't care. The past few days had been a nightmare. His sister and brother-in-law had returned from Japan, fury radiating from them like heat. The detective investigating the incident had asked uncomfortable questions, making thinly veiled threats about charges of child endangerment. Even his business partners were distancing themselves, suddenly unavailable for their regular golf game. "It wasn't my fault," he muttered to the empty room. The girl wandered off. What were we supposed to do? Scale down a cliff in our business clothes? The rationalization sounded hollow, even to his own ears. The truth was, they could have helped. They could have sent someone down to stay with Lily. While others went for help, they could have done a dozen things differently. Instead, they had taken photos, laughed, and left for their dinner meeting. A sound from outside made him start, sloshing more scotch onto his hand. It was like hoofbeats on his manicured lawn. Richard moved to the window, pulling back the custom drapes. His sprawling front yard was empty, the security lights illuminating nothing but perfect landscaping. He was about to turn away when Movement caught his eye, something pale moving at the edge of his property, just beyond the reach of the lights. "What the hell?" he muttered, pressing closer to the glass. For a moment, he thought he saw the outline of a horse, its coat gleaming, unnaturally in the darkness. Then it was gone, leaving him to wonder if it had been there at all. Sleep eluded Richard that night. He tossed and turned, haunted by the image of his niece lying injured at the bottom of that slope. In his dreams, he heard her calling for help, her voice growing increasingly desperate as he turned and walked away. He woke at dawn, drenched in sweat. The nightmare had seemed so real. Lily's face, streaked with tears and dirt, looking up at him with betrayal in her eyes. The worst part was, it wasn't just a nightmare, it was a memory. Shaken, Richard showered and dressed for the day. He had a meeting with his lawyer at 9 to discuss strategy for handling the investigation. As he descended the sweeping staircase of his home, a flash of white through the front windows caught his eye. There, standing in the middle of his front lawn in broad daylight, was a horse. Not just any horse, a wild-looking pale grey horse with intelligent, almost accusing eyes. It stood perfectly still, staring directly at the house. At him. Richard froze on the stairs, a chill running down his spine. This couldn't be happening. Wild horses didn't appear on perfectly manicured lawns in exclusive Seattle neighborhoods, and yet there it was. As he watched, paralyzed, the horse pawed at the ground once, then turned and trotted away, disappearing. Round the side of the house, Richard rushed to the window, but when he looked out, the yard was empty. No horse, no hoofprints in the soft lawn. Nothing. "I'm losing my mind," he muttered, rubbing his temples. Stress and guilt were playing tricks on him. That had to be the explanation. But as he turned away from the window, Richard couldn't shake the feeling that he had just been judged and found wanting. Across the city, a similar scene was unfolding. At Vanessa Wheeler's downtown penthouse, awakened by what sounded like hooves on her balcony, an impossible sound 14 floors above the street, she peered through her bedroom curtains to find a pale horse standing outside her floor-to-ceiling windows, regarding her with an almost human awareness. Vanessa screamed, stumbling backward until she hit the edge of her bed. By the time security responded to her frantic call, the balcony was empty. The guards exchanged knowing looks as they assured her that no horse could possibly have been on her balcony, and perhaps she should consider cutting back on her evening wine. But Vanessa knew what she had seen, and the image followed her throughout the day. At her office, she found herself unable to focus, her thoughts returning to the forest and the injured child they had abandoned there. The justifications that had seemed so reasonable at the time now felt hollow and monstrous. One by one, each person who had been present that day in the forest experienced something similar. James Peterson, waking from a vivid nightmare about falling and being left behind, looked out his bedroom window to see a pale horse standing in his swimming pool, not in the water, but on it, as if the surface was solid ground. Trevor Daniels, driving to work, nearly crashed his BMW when he saw the same horse running alongside his car on the freeway, keeping perfect pace despite the impossible speed. Each sighting lasted only moments. Each defied explanation, and each left behind a seed of disquiet that grew throughout the day, forcing its recipients to confront memories they had tried to bury. For Lily, the morning brought freedom from the hospital. Dressed in fresh clothes her mother had brought, she navigated her way on crutches to the wheelchair that would take her to the car. Her father handled the discharge paperwork while her mother fussed over her, making sure the seatbelt wouldn't press against her cast, that the ride home would be as comfortable as possible. As promised, they took the route that skirted Olympic National Forest. Lily pressed her face against the window, scanning the trees for any sign of a pale coat among the greenery. What did the horse look like exactly? Her father asked from the driver's seat, his tone gentle but still carrying a note of humoring her. He was grayish-white with some darker spots. Not very big, more like a pony really, but strong, Lily described, her eyes never leaving the forest edge. And his eyes, they were so intelligent, like he understood everything. Her mother reached back to squeeze her hand. If he's out there, I'm sure he's doing well, Lily. Wild horses are very resilient. I know, Lily said. I just wish I could thank him again. They drove in silence for a while, the lush forest passing by outside the window. Lily was about to give up her search when she saw it, a flash of pale movement deep among the trees. Her heart leaped. There, she cried, pointing. Dad, stop the car. It's him. Her father slowed but didn't stop. Honey, I don't see anything. Please, Lily begged. Just for a minute. With a sigh, her father pulled onto the shoulder of the road. The forest stretched before them, green and serene in the afternoon light. For a moment, there was nothing. Then a shape emerged from between the trees, the unmistakable form of a horse, its pale coat catching the dappled sunlight. Oh my God, her mother whispered. There really is a horse. The animal stepped partially out of the forest, stopping at the edge of the tree line. Even from the distance, Lily could feel its gaze finding her. She fumbled with her seatbelt. Help me out, please, she said urgently. I need to see him up close. Her father hesitated, then nodded. He helped her out of the car and handed her the crutches. With her parents hovering protectively on either side, Lily made her slow way to the edge of the road. The horse remained where it was, watching her approach. That's him, Lily said softly. That's my friend. As if hearing her words, the horse took a step forward, then another. It moved with deliberate grace, stopping about 20 yards away from where the family stood at the roadside. I've never seen anything like this, her father murmured. Wild horses don't approach humans this way. He's not just any horse, Lily said with absolute certainty. For a long moment, girl and horse regarded each other across the distance. Then Lily spoke, her voice carrying clearly in the still afternoon air. Thank you for saving me. I'll never forget you. The horse tossed its head once, as if acknowledging her words. Then it turned, and with fluid motion, disappeared back into the depths of the forest. Lily stood watching the spot where it had vanished, tears streaming down her face. But these were not tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude and wonder. In the midst of cruelty and abandonment, she had found a connection that transcended understanding. A wild creature had shown her more compassion than the humans who should have protected her. Come on, sweetheart, her mother said gently after a while. Let's get you home. As they drove away, Lily kept her eyes on the forest for as long as she could. She didn't see the horse again, but she didn't need to. She knew it was there, moving silently among the trees, watching over the forest and perhaps, in some way she couldn't explain, watching over her too. What Lily couldn't know was that at that very moment, the pale horse was standing in the center of a luxurious executive boardroom in downtown Seattle, visible only to Richard Morgan and his associates, the very people who had abandoned a child in the wilderness. Their meeting about damage control had come to a standstill as they stared in collective shock at the impossible apparition before them. The horse stood on the polished table, somehow not disturbing a single paper or coffee cup, its eyes moving from face to face with deliberate judgment. No one spoke, no one moved. The message was clear without words. They were being called to account by something beyond their understanding. And for the first time, these powerful men and women began to truly comprehend the weight of what they had done. Chapter 4. The Reckoning of Mercy. 2 weeks passed. Lily's physical healing progressed steadily, her leg mending within its blue cast, now covered with cheerful signatures from her classmates. Her parents had enrolled her in a new school closer to home, one where she wouldn't be known as Richard, Morgan's niece. She was building a new normal day by day, but the investigation into her abandonment had stalled. Detective Martinez visited regularly, bringing updates that weren't really updates at all. Richard and his associates had hired expensive lawyers who spoke of misunderstandings and different perspectives. The executives maintained they had called for help immediately and had only left to get better cell reception. "It's their word against mine," Lily said to the detective during one such visit. They sat in the Morgan family's sunlit living room, Lily's leg propped on a cushion. "And they're rich grown-ups. I'm just a kid." Detective Martinez leaned forward, her dark eyes intense. "Don't underestimate yourself, Lily. And don't underestimate justice either. Sometimes it works in unexpected ways." There was something in her tone that made Lily look up sharply. "Have you seen it too? The horse?" The detective hesitated, an unusual uncertainty crossing her face. "Let's just say I've been hearing some strange stories from our suspects. Nightmares, visions, a feeling of being watched." Across town, Richard Morgan hadn't slept properly in days. The horse appeared in his dreams, silent and accusing. When he was awake, the sightings continued. The horse appeared in impossible places, standing in his shower, reflected in his computer screen, watching him from the back seat of his car. His business was suffering. He couldn't concentrate, constantly distracted by the sensation of being watched. On this particular morning, his doorbell rang. Through the security camera, he saw Emily Williams, Lily's social worker, standing on his doorstep. When he opened the door, Emily smiled. "Mr. Morgan, I thought you might want to know how your niece is doing." "She's fine, I assume," he replied stiffly. "Physically, she's healing well," Emily agreed. "But trauma leaves more than physical marks, Mr. Morgan, especially the trauma of betrayal by those meant to protect you." Once inside, Emily spoke directly. "Lily has been talking about a horse, a pale horse that saved her in the forest. That's been visiting her. That's been visiting others too." Richard couldn't control his reaction, a visible flinch, his face draining of color. "You've seen it too," Emily said softly. "That's absurd," Richard managed, but his voice lacked conviction. "I want you to tell the truth," Emily said simply. "Not just to the detective or to a judge, to Lily. I want you to face her and acknowledge what you did." Richard was about to refuse when movement caught his eye. There, standing in the doorway of his living room, was the horse. It stood perfectly still, its intelligent eyes fixed on him, waiting. "I'll think about it," he said finally. The next morning, Richard called his lawyer to announce his intention to make a full statement to the police. Then he called Detective Martinez and requested a meeting at his sister's house with Lily present. To his shock, they agreed. The day arrived cloudy and cool. Richard stood on his sister's doorstep, more nervous than he'd been before multi-million-dollar business presentations. Sarah's eyes were flint when she opened the door. Inside, Detective Martinez was already there with a notepad. Lily's father stood by the window, his posture stiff. And there was Lily on the sofa, her cast-covered leg propped on pillows. "Hello, Uncle Richard," she said quietly. "Hello, Lily," his voice caught. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." Richard sat, his hands clasped tightly together. All prepared speeches deserted him. "What I did was unforgivable," he began. "I want to start by acknowledging that. There's no excuse for leaving a child, my own niece, injured and alone in the wilderness. We saw you fall. We saw you. We're hurt. We took pictures instead of helping. We laughed. Each admission felt like tearing off a bandage, and then we left you there to attend a dinner that seemed more important at the time. Why? Lily asked simply. Richard had asked himself the same question countless times. I could say it was peer pressure, or that we convinced ourselves help would come quickly. But the truth is uglier. In that moment, I valued convenience and business over your safety. I thought my position and wealth made me untouchable, above consequences. I've seen it, Richard continued, his voice dropping. The horse that saved you, it's been visiting me. All of us who were there that day. Lily's eyes widened slightly. You've seen him too. Richard nodded. At first I thought I was losing my mind, but then I understood. It was conscience or karma, or something I don't have words for. The horse found me when I needed help, Lily said softly. He stayed with me all night. He carried me until we found the rangers. I believe you, Richard said. I want to make a full confession, not just about abandoning Lily, but about lying afterward, about trying to cover it up. Richard turned back to Lily. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I am truly, deeply sorry for what I did to you. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that surprised everyone. I think the horse brought you here. What do you mean? Richard asked. He didn't just save me, Lily explained, her young voice somehow holding wisdom beyond her years. He's been trying to save you too, from being the kind of person who would leave someone behind. The simple truth of her words struck Richard like a physical blow. Tears spilled down his face. I don't deserve that kind of mercy. Maybe that's why you need it the most, Lily said quietly. In the days that followed, Richard's confession opened floodgates. One by one, the other executives came forward with their own admissions, each describing nightmares and visions of a pale horse. The case against them solidified, with charges ranging from child endangerment to filing false reports. Richard faced serious legal consequences, including substantial fines and community service working with at-risk youth. His business suffered as clients distanced themselves, but he found he cared less about that than expected. Something fundamental had shifted inside him, priorities rearranged by the simple wisdom of a child and the silent judgment of a horse that shouldn't exist. 3 months later, Lily's cast was removed. To celebrate, her parents took her for a picnic at the edge of the forest, a different area from where the incident had occurred. As they spread their blanket in a sunny clearing, Lily scanned the tree line, searching for a flash of pale movement. Are you hoping to see your friend again? Her mother asked gently. Lily nodded. I think about him every day. After lunch, Lily asked if she could walk a little way into the forest. Her parents agreed cautiously. Stay where we can see you, her mother said, and take your phone. In a small clearing not far from her parents, Lily stopped. Closing her eyes, she breathed deeply. Thank you, she whispered to the trees, to the sky, to whatever might be listening, for sending him to me. When she opened her eyes, the pale horse stood at the edge of the clearing. Lily's heart leaped, but she stayed perfectly still. The horse regarded her with those same intelligent eyes she remembered, eyes that held wisdom and wildness in equal measure. You're still here, she said softly. You're still watching over things. The horse nickered softly, taking a step closer, then another, moving with deliberate grace. When it reached her, the horse lowered its head, allowing Lily to place her hand on its warm muzzle. Uncle Richard told the truth, she told, the horse stroking its neck. They all did. They're facing consequences now. Justice happened in its own way. The horse listened, its ears pricked forward. I'm not angry anymore, Lily continued, not even at Uncle Richard. He's different now. He's trying to be better. I think that's what you wanted all along, isn't it? Not just to save me, but to save something in them too, The horse pressed its muzzle against her cheek in what felt remarkably like affirmation. Lily wrapped her arms around its strong neck. "Lily?" her mother called from the picnic area. "Everything okay?" "Yes, Mom. I'm fine." When she turned back to the horse, she knew what was coming. There was a finality in its posture, a sense of completion. "You're leaving, aren't you?" she asked, her voice catching. The horse stepped back, regarding her one last time. In its eyes, Lily saw not goodbye but a promise, that wildness and wonder would always exist in the world, that mercy could find us even when we were most lost. "I'll never forget you," Lily whispered. "Never." With one final toss of its head, the horse turned and moved back toward the deeper forest. Lily watched until the pale shape disappeared among the trees, taking with it a piece of magic that had changed her forever. When she returned to her parents, her mother noticed the tears on her cheeks. "Honey, what's wrong?" Lily shook her head, smiling through her tears. "Nothing's wrong. I just said goodbye to a friend." 6 months later, Richard Morgan stood before a group of at-risk teenagers at the community center where he now volunteered weekly as part of his sentence. "Actions have consequences," he told them, his voice carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom. "But they don't have to define you forever." After the session, Lily and her mother approached him. "That was a good talk," Sarah said, her voice still cool but no longer frozen. "I wanted to show you something," Lily said, handing him a drawing she had made of the pale horse. "You've seen him recently?" Richard asked quietly. She shook her head. "Not since that day in the forest, but I don't need to see him to know he's still out there. Some things you just know in your heart." "I'm thinking of starting a foundation," he told them, "for wilderness, education and safety, and a sanctuary for wild horses too." Lily smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "I think he would approve." Outside the community center, life continued its forward motion. People hurried past, unaware of the mysteries that existed at the edges of their understanding. But in Olympic National Forest, as twilight gathered among ancient trees, a pale horse moved silently through the deepening shadows, a guardian of balance, a keeper of consequences, a messenger of second chances, forever wild and free. Dear listeners, we hope that Lily and her silent guardian have touched something deep within your heart. If you found yourself moved by this tale of abandonment, courage, and redemption, please subscribe to our channel to experience more stories that illuminate the resilience of the human spirit. Like this video if you believe in the healing power of truth and the unexpected ways justice can find us. Share in the comments which moment touched you most deeply. Was it the horse's first appearance in the dark forest, Lily's brave journey to recovery, or perhaps Richard's path to redemption? Remember that in our darkest moments, there are forces of goodness in this world, sometimes appearing in the most unexpected forms. Until our next story, may you find your own silent guardians in life's challenging moments.